there, this is Mike Dilt with the Relax Back UK show. On the Relax Back UK show, we explore all kinds of health topics, so keep listening and enjoy the ride. Hi, and thank you for joining me, Mike Dilk, on this week's Relax Back UK show. The topic this week is all about work-life balance, keeping yourself in good shape, and also looking after your staff, your team, making sure that they have good health and well-being.
And the company I've set up, we've actually got stoked as one of our company values, believe it or not. So we actually encourage the people that work for us to actually go and seek it out, because we know it's going to improve their mental health, their productivity, how they feel about working with us, you know.
My guest is Richie Jones, who set up the company VVast. So please do stay tuned to hear about his approach and what he means by being stoked. But before we get going, there's a couple of items of news really that I'm very keen to tell you about. UK Health Radio is now available as a podcast. All the different presenters and their shows are available as separate podcasts, and you can hear those on all the regular podcast channels. The presenters cover a huge range of topics, topics as diverse as men's health, women's health, mental health, sports and fitness, spiritual health, and many others. You will be able to find something that is useful, interesting and relevant to you, so please do have a look there. Once you've listened to this show, of course, that is. If you're listening to a podcast version of the Relax Back UK show, please do the like and share thing like you do with a podcast that you enjoy. You can also see a video version on my Relax Back UK YouTube channel. Now, the video version might be useful for this next bit, this next thing that I want to show you. I want to show you the chair that I'm sitting on. Now, let me just pick it up here. It's a back app chair. It's a saddle chair, and you can see this saddle seat, nice and squishy, so it's very comfy, and it keeps you sitting in a nice posture. But that's not even the best bit. Let me just move the mic a bit here. The best bit is that the chair constantly moves, so you don't seize up. I'll show you how. At the bottom, there's this ball which you can move in and out a little bit. And the more you move it out, the chair wobbles a bit more. Now, it doesn't wobble so crazily that you can't concentrate on what you're doing, but it wobbles enough to keep you moving so that you don't seize up. It really is a wonderful thing. I think everyone's experienced that feeling of sitting completely still for a long time at your desk and then getting up and you're stiff. That goes away, and because you're moving, the muscles you use to balance get a very gentle but constant workout, and those are the muscles that support your spine, so keeping those strong is a very good thing. Now, my guest is Richie Jones from VVast, and actually I spoke to him a couple of months ago just after Christmas. He is a very interesting guy, has an awful lot of energy, and he has started a company called VVast. So he talks about his work-life balance, how he tries to look after the work-life balance of his staff and keep everyone healthy and happy. When I'd spoken to him, he'd just taken some time off, and he'd been doing some crazy things as far as I was concerned during his time off. So I asked him what he'd been up to for the last week.
I guess at this time of year, you know, when you've got the Christmas slowdown, it's the only time of year when my emails and inbound actually slows down. So I've always said, take that first week off in January. So, because whenever I've gone in, there's not been much going on. So I did it, and spent a lot of time with my young family. But once they went back to school, I went off mountain biking and did a lot of surfing and didn't look at my emails or my Slack, which is absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic.
It's a good chance to take the time out.
How long did you manage to not look at that stuff?
I did. It's a bit of a record. I think I was actually offline from email for nearly 6 days, which is a long time. I mean, the business is just coming up to 6 years old, and that's probably one of the longest complete switch offs I've had, which is, when you actually put it in that context, that's quite terrifying when I think about it.
All right. So you were surfing and biking. So was that where was that? In the UK?
Yeah, I was in the UK. I was mountain biking in Wales, where I'm based in Bristol. We're very close to South Wales, and there's some really world-class mountain biking actually over in South Wales. So I was doing that, and then taking advantage here in Bristol, we've got one of the first commercial wave pools where you can actually surf, and it's called The Wave. And I go there once a week, but when I'm off work, I can go even more, and it's an absolutely incredible place.
Okay, so is that outside? It sounds cold.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's really cold. I mean, the wetsuit technology now, it's not actually cold when you're in there. I think the worst bit, to be honest, is actually getting out of your wetsuit after a session. That's when you really feel how chilly it is.
Right. So apart from, obviously you like surfing, and I get that because I've seen clips of videos of people doing that and thought, oh God, I wish I could do that. So apart from that actually been fun, do you get a positive? Is the cold water thing a positive for you? Because this cold water swimming has just taken off big time.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, I've been surfing now for, 30 years, which is quite incredible, really. And I think there's something about being in the water and the sound of it, and just especially once you become reasonably competent at it, in the ocean especially, because the wave pool for me is a bit like a spin class. For me, the real moment is to actually get in the ocean, and you get this complete feeling of being disconnected. You get a reminder of the context of how small we are, because often once you've left the beach and your feet are no longer touching the sand or the rock, you're then beholden to what your knowledge is to be able to kind of stay safe in the ocean. And it's an amazing feeling. Like the cold water side to it is definitely, it's like a tonic. And I think when you get out, you just feel on top of the world. And I mean, it's interesting to contrast it with mountain biking, where that's very endorphin focused as well. But I think surfing activated by that cold water effect as well it's just next level. You feel absolutely incredible. You actually go in, and I find when I go back to my job, I'm better at it, because people can tell. There's lots of people talk about stoke in surfing, and this concept of stoke is literally where you've got this feeling of endorphins and feeling absolutely energized from the activity you've been doing.
All right, I haven't heard that. So you've returned to work and you're fully stoked now.
You got it, exactly. Yeah. And the company I've set up, we've actually got stoked as one of our company values, believe it or not. So we actually encourage the people that work for us to actually go and seek it out, because we know it's going to improve their mental health, their productivity, how they feel about working with us, Okay,
that's interesting. I like that idea. All right. So before we spoke, I did a little bit of research, a little bit of digging. All right. And I came across this sort of one-page resume of Richie Jones. And
yeah.
I'm going to quote a little bit, all right? So Richie has experienced both client-side and agency life across multiple sectors, having spent the majority of his career to date being just in front of the curve. VVast has allowed Richie to blend his client experience and brand expertise to deliver an innovative, low-impact entry to market for brands, but critically plugging them into a relentless R&D roadmap based on shared learning. So I read that, and I'm afraid I was none the wiser into what you actually do. So the first question's got to be, what do you do business-wise, and can you translate that?
Yeah, no, sure. So, I mean, it actually does have a bit of a relevance to the conversation we just had there around being stoked. So, my journey has been one of, as that little quote mentions, one of working in almost two sides of the kind of agency land and brand side of things. So to explain what I do now, so I run VVast, which is a business that brings brands primarily from West Coast US or mainland US into the European market. We also increasingly are starting to bring brands from mainland Europe as well. And what we've done to explain that, we've set up a team and a platform infrastructure that enables brands to be able to trade in these territories and without having to set up a local team. So it's actually very cost effective for them to be able to export their product from say the US into Europe, and then we can basically trade that. And the crucial thing is, we're not a distributor or a middleman. We actually have a direct relationship with the consumer buying. So you as a consumer, you might find increasingly you're starting to buy things directly from the brand that you buy from, that you're into, as opposed to buying from a normal retailer where you might find that same brand. So I'm not sure what sports you're into, Mike, but it's an example would be if you take one of our brands, Yeti. Yeti, they sort of sell sort of kind of like drink bottles like this, and also coolers, that kind of thing. when a consumer buys from the Yeti Europe website, that's actually us running that site. And that's really, and the consumer's none the wiser. But it's a really cost-effective way for the brands to basically achieve like low capital entry into what is quite a tricky market to set up in because of things like Brexit, all of our privacy legislation, all those kind of things. It's actually quite a bit of a minefield for companies to set up in territory without local knowledge. And we solve all of those issues.
So it's a little bit more than just setting up a website for people to peddle their wares on. You take care of the legal stuff, the importing, the exporting, all this kind of stuff. So my business, I import ergonomic furniture from Sweden.
Oh, okay.
I've just been dealing with HMRC, and it appears their objective is to put small businesses like me out of business, I have to say. So
they don't make it easy.
This chat, maybe I'll be giving you another call.
Yeah. Please do. I mean, but on that, I mean, it actually links into this whole comments around the kind of surfing side of things, because what's actually happened to me is I've ended up, we're so lucky that we work with a portfolio of brands that I actually genuinely and passionately believe in their brand mission, because it is very much aligned about outdoors, sustainability. So we're going for our B Corp this year as a business. So we're able to pass on the sort of sustainable and ethical ways of trading to our brands.
B Corp?
B Corp, yeah, which is a
certification.
Yes, it's a certification level that you can get for your business that demonstrates you have a certain level of compliance that you're doing from a sustainability point of view. So simple things like making sure you're not putting your back, when you're sending out a package to a consumer, you're avoiding things like single-use plastic, or you're, in terms of like shipping miles, you're not sending things the other side of the world only to send them back again. That's one of the things we help with our brands with. But then crucially, ensuring that the people that work for us are being treated in a fair and ethical way, and we're doing all those kind of things where we're really leaning in. I mean, we spend many millions with the likes of Facebook, Instagram, Meta, all those kind of people. So we have a whole ethical advertising policy as well that we're implementing as well. So it's really enabling these partner brands that we work with to have an ethical kind of stance and how they operate. And that really resonates with me as an individual, because it means that suddenly we've got purpose as opposed to just profit.
Sure.
And that's
I get it.
That's really good.
I'm sure later on in the chat we'll talk about some of the details, but let me ask you a sort of a slightly bigger question. Again, I kind of sometimes specialize in the unfair question, Richie, so apologies in advance for this question. But so you help people essentially sell their wares online, away from shops, away from the high street. So the big question really is having everything online, is that good for business? Is it good for life in general?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think in the age of, I think at the height of the pandemic, there were lots of question marks around viability of high street and what was the high street actually, what was it going to be, what was it for, in the future. And I think for us coming back, what we succeed with our brands, that our mission is not to shut off a brand's kind of wholesale or retail channel. It's very much to complement it. And I think the most important, so this is like the omni-channel kind of retail play. And I think the most important thing for us is that we work in partnership with their existing retailers. We can help a brand identify where a retailer might be behaving in a way that is actually damaging for the brand as well. So we can identify some of those retailers where they might be going into discount unnecessarily, like way too early in the season, which is great for the initial kind of top line of sale. But in terms of like driving long-term brand success, no one wins when you're in discount. And crucially, that ties back to the sustainability point as well, where the consumer is most at risk of buying a product they don't need when it's in discount, because they just see that
classic kind of race to the bottom scenario.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
definitely. And that impulsive nature of e-commerce, because we're using quite strong, kind of like almost philosophical tactics to get people to buy. It's important that we are behaving in a responsible way to make sure they're not buying something they didn't actually need. So to your question, I mean, to your point, we see it working as a kind of omni-channel play. And I think increasingly, you'll see retailers creating almost cathedral-like spaces, to really show their product off in an amazing way, in a way that you just can't get that feeling when you're shopping online. And I think the combination of bricks and mortar actually touching and feeling a product, along with getting that consumer to ideally repeat on the online channel, is the kind of future. I don't think it's going to be just online. That's the key.
No, all right. Well, certainly, I quite enjoy going to my local high street.
Yeah,
I suppose I'm a bit different because actually there's a local market there as well. So most weeks
yeah,
I go to the market, and actually I quite often say to my wife, if I go to the market and I don't meet someone I know, I feel a bit disappointed. You know,
yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I suppose at heart I am a bit of an old gossip, but I do actually enjoy going to the market and meeting people that I know. So I think the high
Yeah.
street still very much has a place, but it's definitely changing. So in the world of, well, not just retail, this might be slightly outside of your expertise, but I'll ask it anyway. What is the future of the high street? You mentioned these sort of cathedral-like warehouses that really show off products, but what else could happen to tempt us to these places?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's really interesting. You referenced the community and social element to it, and I think that's what's happening more and more. Is that people and the way that sort of the kind of standard local shopping is definitely panning out. It sounds very contrived, but I think people are seeking out more experiential experiences anyway. So I think it's the onus in some senses is on the brand to create these places for community to meet, especially. So some of the brands we work with, and there's some great examples out there as well, where they will hold events in their stores. And if you just reference, say, someone like Yeti, for example, in their US stores that they run, which they're going to be rolling out in Europe as well, they have music on in those stores, like live music, but then they also have a key professional snowboarder might come in and talk about what it was like to compete in the Olympics, and all of those kind of things are being put on by the brand. There's beer there, there's nice food and that kind of stuff. So I think the future is going to be from a brand experiential point of view, will be to create these moments where the customer will really buy into it. So and want to experience this brand extension. So it's not just you buying stuff from the brand, it's you actually experiencing what they're bringing to life. That's the key thing.
Fantastic. So do you actually help these people, your customers, create these experiences as well?
Yeah, we will make recommendations. So pre-pandemic, we were running 3 stores for one of our brands, and we supported them in terms of because they have one of the biggest activations of these brands often is their kind of ambassador sponsorship of pro riders of some form. Mm-hmm. So we will identify where there's opportunities to then bring that to life as an actual experience. And it might be things as simple as yoga, for example. Some of our brands, they do that kind of thing as well. So it's those moments where you can activate, is what they call it, is the kind of marketing term for it, is activate the brand in a way that's going to then resonate with the consumer. And it's not just them buying stuff. It's look, check this out. This is a real chance to kind of come in and hang out with us. It's really exciting.
That does sound interesting, because actually when you said, I don't know what sports you're into, yoga is something that I do, actually. I like doing that most weeks. So if there was something like that near me, I might be tempted to go along and check it out.
Just pop along and you don't have to buy anything. It's all just about you being there and experiencing, a nice environment, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Now, something else in the sort of a slightly different topic in the same environment. You touched on it earlier. Are the change in habits of everybody and the way retail might change, is that good for the environment?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Right. So, what we're creating as part of our B Corp mission is, if you imagine we actually hold a huge amount of consumer information, assuming the consumer's opted in, because you have to tick the opt-in box for us to hold that information. One of the things that we're exploring is starting to surface to a consumer what their buying habits have actually been. And this sounds really counter to the concept of growing revenue. We're suggesting increasingly that do you actually suggest to a consumer, like, do you actually really need this product? You bought one that was similar 6 months ago. And it's a bit like what Patagonia did with their jacket campaign about 2 years ago. Their famous advert they did that said, do you really need this jacket? And it's brilliant. And it's that sort of question of like, do you, there's we're kind of almost conditioned as we've all gone through, especially this, recent times of exponential growth for the economy, to just keep buying stuff. And I think what we're interested in is using data and actually saying to, and perhaps changing the user experience for a customer if we know they've actually bought something already, so they don't need to buy the same thing again. The exception to that would be gifting. That's where it causes a bit more of a challenge, because if you're not buying it for yourself, you're kind of more than likely to be able to justify buying that product. So I think some of these things about because everybody's on this journey, we're all in this different, we know the climate emergency is something we need to address. Everybody's considering whether they need to do long haul travel for their family holiday. Can they justify doing it once a decade as opposed to doing it once a year, for example? We're all in this journey about deciding how much we need to pull back on our kind of spending and consumer habits. And I think in a way, some of it, the onus can be put on a brand to not expose the consumer to as many sales opportunities. But I think at the same time, it's a bit like how our economy in general has to switch out from fossil fuels in general. I think we're all in this journey about how quickly we need to change our habits. And I think so that answers your question, is that I think the brands that are engaging it and being more responsible, so not the fast fashion brands, for example, are the ones that I think will demonstrate that they're being more environmentally conscious. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I have to say I've been getting more and more worried, alarmed by this idea. If you Google, I don't know, for a camping holiday, magically an advert for a tent appears.
That's right.
And all this information. Well, that's another story. Oh goodness, who knows what about me and what I'm planning? Let's stick that to one side. But this idea of these adverts popping up that are trying to getting us to buy stuff, and using AI worries me per se. But this idea of, do you really need that coat? Do you need that extra pair of shoes? I've never noticed that. Is that so if I've had my eyes shut, or is because it's not happening very much yet?
No, it's not. I don't think it's happening much at the moment, but it's something that we're looking to roll out. So, and we always have to have our brands kind of buy-in on that. So what happens? You'll probably see B Corp in the logo. It's like a B with a circle around it. You'll see it now. You'll see it popping up more and more. It's one of those things, Yeah. And it's a bit like there's a song once you hear it and so on. But I think so it's something that we want to experiment with, basically, with our brands. And it's the same with our ethical advertising policy as well, is that even if in year one we only get our brands to agree to say 5% of their marketing spend to go through what we call our ethical advertising policy, that will, in theory, reduce the number of times those adverts that you're describing potentially will be going in front of someone who perhaps doesn't need that product. So what you'll find is, because everybody, the kind of popular culture perception of people's phone is listening to them. There's this sort of feeling. What is actually happening is this advanced AI is understanding the buying habits and how you're behaving is akin to someone who's bought previously that then goes on to buy. And that's actually what's happening. And what we are kind of going to be experimenting with our brands is getting them to year one, even if they opt into only 5% of their spend, that's a lot less to these what we call brand impressions going out to market where people don't necessarily need to buy. So that's definitely one thing we're looking at, and it's we're signed up to it as part of our B Corp mission.
Yeah, all right, fascinating. Let's move the discussion a little bit away from that, more to you personally, because you have described yourself, I think, as a serial entrepreneur.
Yes.
So, What is a serial entrepreneur?
I think it's basically the challenge is, once you've started your own business, in my case, I've founded and sold a previous business and now gone on to found another one, which is now the current one, VVast. Once you've done that, the kind of joke amongst other peers that doing the entrepreneurship element that we're doing is that we're essentially unemployable by a normal business. Once you've started the kind of, and you get used to the kind of highs and the considerable lows that you experience as an entrepreneur, you would rather not have it any other way going forward. So the concept of serial entrepreneurship is that, and going forward, I'll be taking stakes in other businesses and taking on non-exec roles on other boards as well. It's something that you just keep doing. Once you buy and sell a business, you can keep doing it and do it again. And it's almost like when I went brand side, which you referenced earlier in the interview. When you do go and work for someone for a bit, you just look at the guy running it sometimes and go. Sometimes you don't know what they're, you can tell they don't necessarily know what they're talking about, and especially with emerging technologies like where we are at the moment. It's so bleeding edge. You want to be the person who's kind of driving the strategy, because you don't want to be limiting yourself in terms of what the opportunity could be, for sure.
Okay, so something that and you can put me right on this, it sounds like you don't fall into this category. When I think of a serial entrepreneur, I haven't heard this anywhere, by the way. This is just my thought, which I'm thinking really is incorrect. You start a business, hype it up, sell it quick before anyone realizes it doesn't really quite work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of business sales out there that would align with that, for sure. Yeah, and I think the really shrewd investors can spot that when you're inflating profit, when you're capitalizing items in the third year for some reason, all those kind of things. So I think I think especially in the tech sector, there's a lot of examples of people buying something that perhaps they thought they were buying, but the actual reality is that it wasn't really worth what it is. Yeah. Dare I say, I think maybe Twitter might be an example of that, but we will see.
That's quite topical just now, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So, I mean, but being being an entrepreneur definitely has highs and lows. I can tell you some of the grief. In fact, I was just earlier in the interview talking about dealing with HMRC and some of the difficulties.
Yes.
Being a serial entrepreneur, I'm not a serial entrepreneur. Can it lead to serial health problems? Because it's not an easy life you've chosen. Let's face it.
No, it's a good question. I mean, I think I definitely made a mistake with VVast, because it's like a further company that I founded. I almost set myself some ground rules, and I think the difference this time round with this business is that I'm married and have got a young family, whereas my previous entrepreneurial experiences, I've just been able to work crazy hours, work weekends, not take holidays. Whereas this time with the family, it's actually been incredibly healthy for me in terms of keeping me grounded, keeping things in perspective, and forcing me to take time away from the business, which is actually really, really, really valuable. Even though it is sometimes as stressful, but it's a different form of stress, and you find bizarrely you can still go back and still feel refreshed. But I think I definitely made the mistake about 2.5 years ago, and my body reminded me of it. I was overtraining on my mountain bike. I was chasing miles using an app called Strava. Strava, you probably heard of it. It's very much like will give you almost like gamification, incentivizing you to go, you could do another 10 miles a day and you'll hit your monthly target. And and we've got similar tools in the business that track our revenue and our margin performance and our year-on-year performance. And I started treating my body like the business. And I forgot that you've got to keep this thing fueled and you've got to get more sleep. And basically my back one day went, no, you can't keep doing this. And I was basically overtraining, and I wasn't doing the right mobility for my body, because it's, as you probably know, with biking especially, it's very much very all about your legs. You're not really supporting your lower back correctly and all those kind of things. So what I've gone on to do since, which has been an amazing experience, is I actually train with a chap called Ollie, who's part of Surf Fit Academy, and he has given me not only surf coaching but also an amazing program that I'm still doing to this day. It's all work from home stuff that is very much focused about building up my mobility, crucially, and also strength. And I've now I was offered an operation on my lower back that I haven't actually had to take. I've been able to manage it through brilliant yoga, through brilliant mobility, through focus on my surfing and my biking, and to get that balance back. And it's been transformative to my life, because I can now feel as a 48-year-old that I've got an amazing platform now to see that I'll be surfing into my 90s, hopefully. I'll be there with a Zimmer frame on my surfboard, and it's just great, because it's been I can really see I was making some really silly mistakes with my biking before, just overtraining. My hips were so locked they were locked, and I can really tell now when I'm on the bike now. I'm like, wow, I'm so much more fluid, and just again, dare I say, stoked. It's really, really good.
Okay, all right. So you look after your health as running the business. Does that translate into and actually you alluded to this earlier, so I think it probably does. I don't know how many people work in the business, but presumably it's not just you.
No, it's just over 30 now. Yeah, over 30. Yeah.
And so how do you look after your staff, I guess is the question.
I mean, it's part of the mission to B Corp. It's actually made us focus increasingly on ensuring that we've got the effective mental health support in there in particular. We've got a dedicated HR team that are helping us on that journey. I mean, I just on a one-on-one basis have encouraged people to, like my direct line reports, to do more sports. And we actually have a company value, again, that is, as part of that relating to your stoke, is to just like live our brand values in some senses, and that find time to take time out. That's the most important thing. And we as you alluded to, we've got a big, with retail focus. So we have very much a big Q4 peak because of the Christmas peak. So we try and get people, especially this time of year, hence why I was off the other day, to take time off and just get that time to really recharge. And I think we've identified HR as a big part of what we do going forward. It's just really, really important.
I saw something in the news yesterday, which was about workplaces and happy and healthy workplaces. And it was a comment about when it's someone's birthday or the boss's birthday or whoever's birthday. It's kind of a traditional thing in an office for them to bring in a load of cakes to share with everyone. And they were saying that actually this is a bad thing. We shouldn't eat so many cakes, but that might be true. But I kind of like the idea of everyone getting together and celebrate a birthday. So what happens when it's someone's birthday at your business?
Yeah, I mean, we do the cake thing. Actually, was it the Food Standard Agency? I think it was actually put out that advice. It was someone really bizarre who'd actually made this comment.
I saw it on Twitter.
I think I saw it as well. I think what the classic thing is about cake is it's all about balance. As long as you're not eating it every day, and I think maybe the way I view it is I have a slice of cake when I'm in the office because I don't have a cake sauce elsewhere, to be honest. So unless I go cycling somewhere, so I might have a bit of cake. So it's like everything, isn't it? I think it's the good old balance word, isn't it? I think it's just another. I think it's a bit of showboating maybe on best practice. I mean, it's January, for goodness sake. When are you going to eat cake? Otherwise,
And I'd much rather work somewhere where people do occasionally get together and talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is over cake.
No, definitely. We work quite hard on that. We've actually got a culture team, and I know it sounds a little bit contrived, but the culture team work really closely to make sure we do at least once a month. We congregate and have fun and do some cool stuff. And the most important thing as well is it's not all just based around having alcohol. It's beer. It's not. Because we want to be inclusive for people who
not
don't
everyone
drink.
likes drinking beer.
No, they don't. Exactly. And we've got for religious reasons as well in our business and all that kind of stuff. So we want to make sure we're fully inclusive. And so, I think the next one we're doing is a bit of axe throwing, just for fun. So it's that kind of stuff. We've been recently bowling as well. And we did some pottery last year as well. So it's just coming up with fun stuff. Because if you don't enjoy working with the people you're working with, I mean, that's no fun, is it?
No, I get it. So,
I
mean, my business is tiny, and it is just me. So, I will have cake on my own occasionally.
Well, we have these fascinating moments, right? So I'm keep on referencing our company values, but one of our ones is great things when we work together, right? And we have the situation where I will catch in a cool way members of the team. We might be in take ice skating or something. We might be in a scenario in a cafe or something. They will literally be 2 or 3 people. Hustled around a mobile phone, looking at someone's website, like a brand's website, and all sharing their frustrations with why the user experience or the customer experience is so compromised. And that passion of being offended, it's incredible. And I think that is the essence of what we're trying to achieve, of creating these amazing brand experiences. I just love it when the team are so passionate, and in those moments I only ever see because I'm locked away on Zoom or looking at P&Ls a lot of the time. I love witnessing those because it reminds me of why the business exists. It's real passion for sure.
Yeah, no, good. I mean, I love the way you've spoken about your business. I mean, you've proved to me that it does something useful, it does something worthwhile, and it's good for the people that work in it.
Yeah,
But
great.
with all that in mind, um, as a serial entrepreneur, what's the next project? What's the next thing you're up to?
So, well, the interesting thing, right? So we just started this B Corp journey. So our next thing we're doing, right, is we think we can influence the very fabric of retail. And I know this sounds like a grandiose statement, but I think we can, with some of the stuff we're going to test and learn, we're actually going to approach it in the same way that, say, Volvo did when they invented the seatbelt, or when they actually invented, obviously, the airbag as well. That is an open source patent they've got on those two ideas. And when they invented those ideas, they realized that they could save so many people's lives across the world by making the technology involved in like a seatbelt free to use. What my kind of like ambition and mission is with this business is I think we can trailblaze examples of where we can start to address the climate emergency in retail, which is a hideously polluting sector, to actually influence the whole of retail. So my kind of next big thing is to just genuinely affect and start to demonstrate you can make change. You can start off really small, and then you can start to influence some of the biggest brands in the world. And we've got, we work with VF. VF are a sort of $13 billion US turnover listed business. If we could demonstrate to them, look, we made this small change on this brand that we work with, which is Jansport, which is one of the bigger ones. Imagine if they adopted that change with one of their brands like North Face, for example. That would be phenomenal. They would have a kind of snowball effect. So I would love us to be almost as influential as, say, Patagonia could have been in terms of changing supply chains, changing consumer habits, and being really open about it. So yeah, that's the kind of big idea. And it sounds pretty full on, but it'd be great fun if we could do it.
I think that sounds like a absolutely wonderful plan.
Yeah,
because you've got to have a plan in life, haven't you? Otherwise you sort of drift about. And I think that's fascinating. We might have to get together this isn't going to happen next week, is it? We might have to book a time a year or two ahead for a bit of feedback on how that's going.
Yeah. I mean, I think timeline wise, get us in a year's time, because I think we'll be in a really interesting place. Because you can't beat the kind of idea of talking about this in a fairly utopian way, and then you have the hard commercial reality of when you're turning around to a brand and saying, we actually think it might affect your year-on-year growth by 10% if you adopt these policies, but wow, look at what you're doing to the environment, look at the kind of consumers you're engaging, because these consumers are going to engage in your brand because they believe in your mission, as opposed to you guys being cheap or whatever, things that don't build equity. So it's quite a compelling selling point, we think.
Yeah, all right.
But yeah, let's meet up again in a year's time, and I'll let you know how it's gone.
All right, I'll do that. But in the meantime, if people have been listening, either individuals or, dare I say, companies from the States that are thinking, I like what this guy's saying, and I'd like to think about maybe doing some business in Europe, how can people find out about or more about you and the business?
Yeah, sure. So the best place to go to find out more about us is our web address, which is VVast, spelled VVast.net. I'm also on LinkedIn. Just search Richie Jones Vast and I'll come up. The good place our own website's probably the best place though, because we've got some great vlogs on there about our mission. And our most recent one, there's a B Corp page on there as well. And I'm talking on that B Corp page about a recent trip I made to Pakistan last year, where I witnessed the kind of glacial retreat with my own eyes in the Himalayas. And it's one of the reasons why I've got such passion about driving this focus, because I've seen it with my own eyes. And I think, have a look, see what you think. But get in touch if you're interested.
I'm sure people will. So look, Richie, thank you very much indeed for taking a few minutes to chat. It's much appreciated.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Thank you very much to Richie Jones for being such a great guest. And thank you to you for listening, and have a healthy week. Until next week.
That was the Relaxed UK show with me, Mike Dill. Thank you for listening, and please do join us again next time.